Hi, everybody. Welcome to the We Garden Homestead. My name is Claudia, if you're new here. Today, we are actually doing a follow-up video on a video I did, I think it was 2 videos ago, where I did the shamrock block right here. So there's my shamrock block. And at the time, I said that we were going to make a bag out of this, a tote bag. And I put up a couple different kinds of fabric. I think there were 5 of them. Let me count. 1, 2, 3, 4. I put five fabrics up that would go with it. 5 St. Patrick's Day fabrics. And I asked for y'all to vote. I posted on my long form YouTube video. I posted on a short video. And I posted on Instagram. And I posted on Facebook also. So I have run the tallies. I said I was going till noon today. Today is Sunday. It's about 12:30 now. So I did count at noon. And it was kind of close. There was a lot of people that voted for the polka dots and a lot of people that voted for the swirls. The polka dots won by 2 votes. The big blocks had 3. The dancing leprechauns had 2, and the 9 patch had 1. So I think I had 6 because I had the little tiny blocks too, which did not get any votes. So the polka dots is what won. And I'm going to estimate that this is right at a ½ a yard. Now, for a bag, if I was doing front and back, I would use a ½ a yard. This looks very narrow. Let me measure this real quick. 41 by 21. What I'll do is I'll just cut it in half. And I'll use 1/2 of it for the back, and then I'll use the other half for the front and the handles. So I'm going to get you turned around to my cutting table so you can see what I'm working with. I did pull out, I've got this, what's left of a bolt of black, just solid black broadcloth. I'm not going to do anything fancy on the inside. I may put a pocket in there, and I'll think about that. I may grab another fabric. I had a couple fabrics that were too small to use to make a bag that I might put a pocket on the inside. I guess you'll find that out as we go. This is what I'm working on today, and we're going to get this bag done. I know I've done several bags with you before, but you know, if you haven't seen those, then you'll get to see it on this one. That had dropped that on the floor, and it had some dog hairs on it. Thanks so much for joining me. Don't forget to like, subscribe, leave a comment. Stay tuned. I'll show you how I'm going to make the bag, and I'll show you the bag at the end. Thanks so much. Okay, so here's what we're working with. Usually I go with a ½ a yard, or a fat quarter. So we need it to go to 18. And then this is going to get centered on that 18. This is going to be the bottom, so I need enough to curl around and then this will be towards the top. So it'll have a border here, it'll have size, and then it'll have this on the bottom. I'm thinking as I'm going, I think I might go with 19. We're going to lose a ½ an inch there. Leave 2 inches here. I'm going to go with 19 on this one because I've got it. I don't want to go the whole way because if the bag is too long, then if I carry it in my hand, it'll drag on the floor. That can go in my scrap bin. Okay, I am going to cut this right down the middle, right on that fold line. Probably be easier to do it with scissors, but I don't have any handy right now. Okay, so this piece, you know, I just replaced this blade not too long ago. This piece is going to be the back. Put that away. This piece is going to be the front. So here I am squaring this off. I squared it off to 12 inches, and that was the closest I could get to making it all square. I think 12 inches is a great size. Then I was measuring, just double checking. I'm cutting the sides for the front first, and I cut these at, I believe it was 4.5 inches. There was 1, there's 2, and then I had to do some math there, and I cut that as wide as it was gonna be for the block. So I cut it at I think I cut it at 11.5. It was a mistake. And then I cut them 4.5 again, or 4 inches. Like, I can't remember for sure. And then I was like, oops, it's a little too narrow. So I went back and trimmed my block just a hair more to make it fit, because I did cut those too small. I was thinking the block was going to be 11.5 finished, and that's what I cut. But really I should have cut them at 12. So, and everyone would be different depending on the size of your block. So, you know, it's kind of adjust as you go. So then I'm going to go sew those on top and bottom. There they are, all sewn on. This is super sped up for you. And then the sides are going to go on right there. They fit just perfectly. And I'll be back. There we go. The sides are on and pressed. I did trim the top, was hanging off a little bit, so I did trim that. And then I double checked to make sure that the front and the back were the same size. Turned out the back was just a hair smaller than the front, so I did trim just about a 1/2 inch, 1/4 of an inch off of either side to make it measure up. Then I pulled out my black fabric, trimmed it off even. And again, this is super sped up. And then I cut 4.5 inches for my straps, one strip at 4.5 inches. And I will cut that in half so I have 2 straps. Then I just laid my front over top of the back, the lining, and I cut it off at the length I needed. And then I put it over by just a hair on the edge there, because I wasn't going to put a seam in there. I was just going to use that fold. So I did leave enough for seam allowance on the other end though. And then I decided I was going to do a pocket out of that last little scrap I had. So I just cut a square, well, it was kind of a rectangle from the lining fabric and the leftover piece I had there to make a pocket. I put them right sides together. I sewed around it, leaving a little bit open at the bottom for turning. I clipped the corners, and then I used my finger and my fingernail to get those corners through, turned it right side out, and then I went back and pressed it and top stitched that top edge. Then it was time to put it onto the lining. I folded the lining in half. Don't forget, I'm only using half of that for the back or the front. So I folded it in half to marked halfway. I folded the pocket in half. I think I put it down about 4 inches. I got it tacked down, and then I pinned all the way around so that I could go top stitch all the way around, and that would seal up the opening on the bottom where I had turned it. Then I cut my straps in half. I'm going to fold a 1/2 inch over there, and I'm going to fold 1/4 inch and then fold it over and stitch it. I'm going to do that at the ironing board. You won't see me do that. Okay, so here's my lining with the pocket, and there are my straps all finished and top stitched with matching green thread. The next step is going to be, I'm going to sew this inside out. I'm going to turn it inside out. I'm going to sew down the side and across the bottom, leaving a space open. And then for the front and the back of the outside, I'm going to sew down both sides and all the way across the bottom. I am making sure I have that right side up so I know which way I'm going when I sew that. And here we are back. Everything is sewn. And I was just measuring to make sure they were the same width. I had gone back one time and taken that lining down just a hair. It was a little too wide, and they have to be the same or they won't fit at the top when you put it all together. Now I'm cutting a 2-inch square from the seam, 2 inches in from each seam right there, and then that's going to be my corner placket. It's hard to see what I'm doing here, but if you pinch it, maybe you can see better on the next one. Again, 2 inches in and 2 inches up from the seams. I did finish it with the scissors because the first time I went a little too far. And then you pinch it together from the corners, you line up nest those seams, there we go, and then just stitch straight across there. So I'm going to do that with all 4 of those bottom corners, the lining and the top. here it is all finished. I did go back and pull open that little spot that I forgot to leave shut when I stitched it the first time. I'm going to need that open for turning later on. Then I'm going to turn the outside piece right side out. I'm going to leave the lining inside out. That was a 5-inch gusset across there to make a nice 5-inch bottom. Now I'm going to add the straps on, and basically I took the center and I went 3 inches from either side of the center. That took me right to the edges of where that block is sewn in. So I actually did, for this one, I just lined up the straps with those, with the edge of those blocks, with the edge of the block. Now you want to put the right side, the side that you want showing of your straps, so the side that doesn't have a seam, you want to put that towards your bag, and then without twisting it, you want to put the other end on too. A lot of people sew these before they move on. I just pin it and then I'll keep going. So here I am, I just flipped it over and I did the same thing on this side. I just made sure they were lined up, made sure, you know, I tugged and made sure they were lined up from the seam in, and then I just made sure they were lined up on both sides the same. Next, you're gonna roll up your bag and stuff it inside, your lining, and then line up the side seams, give it a good tug. I just nestled the side seams. I pushed one facing one way and one facing the other way. It's hard to see here. And then I gave it a good tug. The top edge of the bag, I hadn't trimmed it, and there were a couple spots where it didn't quite line up on those edges. I just eased it in, and then I went through and I made sure that I eased it in all the way. I pinned all the way through, and you could use clips here too. I just had pins handy, so that's what I used. Didn't feel like going to the other room to get my clips. So I just went all the way around with the pins. You can see where it didn't quite line up there. I just used the black, the lining line when I sewed. And I am going to go sew this. I'll sew it twice. I'll go once about 1/4 of an inch around, and once a little farther than that, probably 3/8 of an inch or a little more, maybe even 1/2 an inch maybe. Right there I'm going to sew, and then I'm going to sew again. So here it is. Here's the moment of magic. This is stitched. You can see where I double stitched it, and like I said, it was about probably 1/4 of an inch, and then maybe a little farther. I'm not going to trim that. I don't trim them because if I trim it down close, then when I go to top stitch from the outside, then I'm dealing with the edge there, and sometimes that'll knock you off crooked depending on your sewing machine and that. So the next thing is to turn it right side out. I'm just going to pull that whole bag through the bottom of the lining fabric there. It's like magic. This is my favorite part. This is truly my favorite part, when I pull this through and I see how it looks. So there it is. I'm going to tuck the lining down inside the bag. First I'm going to sew up that bottom there. You could hand sew it if you cared about it showing, but really it doesn't matter. I'm just going to tuck it all together. I'll just pin it and then I'll sew straight across. So sorry you can't really see very well, but there's the bag. I'm going to ease the edges there where I sewed, like that, so that the stitching is the very edge. And then I'm going to press around the whole thing, and then I'm going to top stitch it. I'm going to stitch up that bottom piece so it's all sealed up, and we'll be back to show you the finished product. Okay, so here it is, all finished, turned right side out. The inside is stitched closed. There it is. I really like that bright green top stitching on there. I think that looks good. I did change the thread out several times. I used black for sewing it up, and then I used the green for the top stitching. So I think that came out really good. This is a great use for orphan blocks, for tester blocks. I mean, this was just a tester block basically, but I love making bags out of orphan blocks. The green top stitching was on the inside also, and on that inside pocket. I did mean to put the pocket on the inside of the back, but it wound up on the front. Sometimes that's just how things work out. I don't know. I guess I just wasn't paying attention. As long as all the pockets are right side up, I don't worry about it too much. That's going to be it. Stay tuned for some pictures. I am going to show some pictures of it. I did hang it down by my side, and it does just barely brush the floor. So if somebody was a little shorter than me, it would definitely hit the floor when they were carrying it. That's it. Stick around for the pictures. It fits great over my arm. And don't forget to like, subscribe, leave a comment, tell me what you think. I'm so glad that we picked that green with the polka dots. That is the one I would have picked if I would have picked it for myself instead of just having you all vote. Thanks so much. This was so much fun. We're going to see you on the next one.